Welcome back to Celebrity Radio. It's Alex Belfield talking to some of the country's biggest stars and some of my favourite people. And we've got one for you today. A lady I've loved for over 30 years, the star of magic, the only female star of magic really in Britain ever. So how are you, Debbie?
Yes, I'm fine, thank you, Alex. Yes.
This must be a little bit bittersweet for you in a sense that last year you were doing pantomime down in Ipswich, I think. I know you had a good time and it was tough in a sense that Paul had his difficulties but still got through it and you still wowed the audience. Of course, this year you're by yourself. We haven't spoken since Paul's passing. I want to firstly say I love Paul Daniels. I loved your husband. He was a true gentleman and inspiration and a great guest on the programme. And I send my condolences. How are you, Debbie?
I'm doing well, Alex. I'm always a very positive person. And of course I have my down moments, and I will be very honest and say coming away to York, luckily I'm staying with some family here, has been really tough for all of those reasons. But last year, although Paul, we hadn't realised that he had started to become a little bit ill when we did the panto, he was still him and bubbly and making everybody laugh and everything. And also being Christmas, he was a bit Christmas. He loved Christmas. He was such a kid at Christmas. Yeah. And being in York, where it's so beautiful, and I have spent a Christmas here with him as well, walking around the first few days and going to rehearsals on my own were hard. And I did put on a brave face, but they were tough. But it's got easier, and I had the day off yesterday. So I went out on my own into town and did some Christmas shopping and just got full of the Christmas spirit with everybody. And actually had a really lovely time, and it's bucked me up a bit, actually. And now I've got to get on with getting this panto on this week.
Yeah. I guess that must be the toughest thing. You were so identified together and we loved seeing you together, and that takes a long time to readjust and create your own identity by yourself, I suppose, because it was always Paul and the lovely Debbie McGee, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think, the good thing for me was I always kept another career going, and I've got my own radio show on BBC Radio Berkshire. I've just got this month off, but I'd always done other things like corporate things, presenting awards evenings and various other personal appearances and other bits of other jobs. So of course I've still got something to carry on with, and that's been very important for me. But of course, yes, there's always that thing. Paul was such a big presence and made me laugh every day. So yeah, it takes a bit of adjustment.
As you might remember, I love magic, and I go around the world talking to different magicians, whether it's David Copperfield or Chris Angel or the boys Lance Burton in Las Vegas, and they all speak so highly about your husband, and they just loved him. That must be great. He was so credible, wasn't he?
Yeah, and I think a part with Paul is it wasn't just his talent, he loved people. Yeah. And he wasn't ever jealous of anybody that was up and coming. He always got excited, particularly in magic, if there was someone who was young who was good. It's an interesting thing, because I was a dancer, I'd worked with a lot of people before I worked with Paul. The thing that I really picked up on with Paul when I very first met him was this complete unselfishness about him and his talent, and he always appreciated other people with talent, and that could be, the bin man that's collecting your bin that's doing his job well. Paul just loved people, and I think that's why they loved him back.
And he was effortlessly charming on stage. I saw you last about a year and a half ago in Derby, and it was a wonderful show, full production. And again, not the big whizzes and bangs that they go for in Vegas, just Paul, his gags, you, and a few tricks. And it worked. It was genius.
Yeah, the show we did last year that you came to was called The Intimate Show. And Paul designed it because he said, right, everybody's doing big illusions this year. Dynamo's going out with a huge tour with a big show and whatever. So why don't we go to the opposite end of the spectrum, and we'll treat it like we're going to a party every night. And you were there, and that's exactly what it was like, wasn't it? And we sold out everywhere.
Really wonderful. What an amazing legacy. You must be very proud. We wish you all the best. Are you looking forward to Christmas in terms of the panto, or are you kind of dreading it being the first Christmas without Paul?
I'm really trying to look forward to it, because I had so many fantastic Christmases with him. And so what I've done this year is I'm doing something that I've never done before. And my family are coming up from the south. We've all booked into a hotel in York for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, Christmas night. And so we're all going to be at this hotel for Christmas Day, and I'm sure that we'll all still have a lovely time just remembering the ones that aren't with us.
Do you pinch yourself sometimes, especially when you're in perhaps 2 weeks in and it's a Wednesday matinee and you look in that mirror and think, have I got to do this again? How do you get around the psychology of it? Because it is tough and hard work.
It is, but you know, I've always loved performing, and that has never been a problem. Getting to a gig is sometimes the problem, which here I haven't because I haven't got to travel. But I get this kind of real buzz minutes before I go on stage that I can't wait to get out there. And even on a day where, especially over Christmas, in Panto, and you're tired and you might have had a little bit too much to eat and drink the day before, there is still that buzz. And once I get that, you go on and everything else is forgotten and you just have a great time. So I'm very lucky that I never really seem to need to wind myself up. But if I do feel a bit flat, I've got different techniques of breathing that I watched Baryshnikov do when he was guesting with the Royal Ballet years ago. Of this, you might have seen Madonna do it sometimes, where you do this huffing and puffing and then you run on the spot, and then you get faster and faster and faster, and then you walk on stage slowly. And Paul used to do that as well. If we were tired and we were on tour, we used to stand in the wings on either side of the stage, because we'd enter from different sides, looking at each other, and as they were playing the overture, we'd start trotting on the spot, getting faster, and like being in a race. And then when it was our cue, suddenly you kind of breathe out and walk on. And it does create a presence as well. It gives you something, and I think your audience pick up on it. So that's what I'll be doing on the days I'm tired in Panto. I'll be having a good old jog on the spot.
You're so likeable and lovable. I wonder 9 months after Paul whether the affection you've received from the public is the reason that you're able to do a Panto this year. It was extraordinary, wasn't it? The warmth that you received and the kindness from the public. Oh,
just totally overwhelming. It was fantastic, and still continues, and I'm still getting letters. And what's so lovely for me, Alex, and as you said, with having, it feels like people have kind of just taken me into their hearts. I just go shopping anywhere now, and people, and this happens all the time, just come up and give me a hug. They don't say anything. Or they'll come up and say they want to say something about Paul, or that they're sorry, or whatever. But the most amazing thing is in my village, it happened first of all. One day I was queuing up in the post office after he died, and this older lady came up and just gave me a hug and walked out. And that was the first time, and I was kind of stunned and taken aback and thought, wow, this is very special. But since then, it's happened not every day, but a lot when I'm out and about. And I almost can't believe it. It's just wonderful. People have been incredible. And as you say, yeah, it's really helped me to keep going. And the fact that he was so loved, because he loved all of them. He loved his audience.
And again, in such a cynical PR world where everybody's fighting for Twitter followers, you didn't have that. You just had a TV show that people fell in love with for 20, 30 years. And you can't buy that, can you? That being in people's homes, you were family to people, especially people like me of my generation.
Yeah, and I think that's really what's so lovely for me. And for Paul, it was that as we grew older, our audiences started bringing their children with them and their grandchildren with them who weren't alive when our programs went out. But now we have a fan base of younger people that never watched the TV shows, but they'd see us on YouTube, but would come to the live shows. So it's fantastic, isn't it? I'm really lucky.
And then that thing of waking up in the morning and finding yourself on the front of all the papers, that's another thing that someone like me will never experience. Does that ever become normal?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, that was all quite surreal. Yes, it was, I don't know, it just was totally unexpected. And I suppose because Paul and I are people that, show business was our job. And yes, it's quite normal for us to mix with people in show business that other people would love to get to meet. But to us, that was the norm. But we never ever thought of ourselves as being particularly famous. And
interesting.
Certainly not now, all these years after our TV show had finished. Although we carried on working, we weren't what they call A-list celebs that are on telly every day and all of that. So we kind of just, we'd always stayed very down to earth, but we just kind of thought that side of it had all gone, really. So really, really quite amazing.
Debbie, thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you too. Bye for now.